So let's start with a high-level overview. What is probate? And probate is a legal process that involves the execution of a will, or if there is no will, the administration of a deceased person's estate. And key tasks include securing assets, liquidating assets, settling debts, and distributing the remaining assets to the rightful heirs or beneficiaries. So let's start out with pre-probate. What are some things that you as a personal representative or family should be thinking about in the pre-probate phase? And again, pre-probate is that time where you have lost a loved one and you have not yet been court appointed as personal representative. So what do you do during that pre-probate phase to make the entire probate process less stressful? Well, first things first, deal with the personal matters, right? Take care of the funeral. Take some time for self-care. Take some time for grieving. There's a lot of work you have ahead of you, and there's time to get that work done. During the pre-probate phase, really focus on self-care, grieving, and the funeral. Number two, you can start to locate important papers that are probably in the house or coming in the mail. Some of those might include the will, Social Security. I encourage people to deal with Social Security right away. And the reason is that if Social Security is doing direct deposits into your loved one's account, and you don't notify them because you want the money to keep coming in, when you finally notify Social Security, they'll look at the date on the death certificate and they will go back and they will withdraw funds back to the date when the person passed away. So you think you have this money in the account, and all of a sudden you had to pay back Social Security, and they won't wait for you. They'll just do it. And so take care of that right away. Locate important papers on bank accounts, insurance policies, stocks, bonds, etc. And some of these items, like bank accounts, there could be a transfer on death, but in many cases there's not. There could be a beneficiary on the bank account. In many cases there's not. Insurance policies, if they have a beneficiary listed, then they don't need to be part of the probate process. You would just file a claim as the beneficiary. And same thing with stocks and retirement accounts. If there is a beneficiary listed, then they're excluded from the probate process. And that's important because if you're not transferring real estate and you get rid of some of those big ticket items like the bank account or life insurance policy or stock account, that might lower the threshold enough that you don't have to go through a full-blown formal probate process in your state. All right, and each state is different. Each state has a different threshold. So, for example, in Minnesota, if the estate is worth less than $75,000 and there is no real estate, then you do not have to go through probate. I know some other states, I think Montana is like $100,000. I think California is somewhere around $160,000 or $170,000. Texas, I can't remember the amount. I think it was around 175 or 100,000. So each state is different. And if there is no real estate and the estate is below that dollar amount set by your state, then you don't have to go through the full probate process. You could just do a summary judgment in some states, or you could do affidavit of a small estate. Each state calls it something different, but that's important to note. So next, you need to continue to pay the decedent's bills during this pre-probate phase. I will give you an example here. Sometimes the bills are set up for auto pay, and you have money coming in from a retirement account or annuities, and you can use that money to continue to pay the bills. Other times you might have to pay the bills out of your own account. And if you do, just keep good records because you can deduct those from the estate expenses later on. But you got to keep making that mortgage payment. When you are going through probate, if you are not making the mortgage payment, or you stop making the mortgage payment, or maybe your loved one was sick and they stopped making the mortgage payment before they passed away, your house or the house in the estate is now going into the foreclosure process. Foreclosure does not stop just because a person passed away. The bank will just keep moving forward through that foreclosure process. And what will happen is you will end up dealing with foreclosure to try to save the house and dealing with probate simultaneously, which will increase your expenses working with the attorney. And you will not be able to negotiate with the bank until you've been appointed as the court-appointed personal representative. So try to keep making those mortgage payments so that the house does not go into foreclosure. This is a trap that I see for a lot of families. They don't realize this, and either they stop making the mortgage payments or they didn't realize the mortgage payments were being made. They think that it'll all get straightened out as part of probate, and then the foreclosure process kicks in, and now you have a different problem in addition to probate. So that is one way to really limit the stress while you're going through this process, is keep paying those bills. Next, I recommend families to forward the mail. This is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, it It helps you find some of those important papers we were talking about. A lot of people who have passed away still have important papers coming through the mail. And in addition to that, you don't have mail piling up at the house. So make sure you forward the mail. And you could go out to the United States Postal Service website. Last time I did it, it was like $1. And you can do that very easily. Number 5, I have contacted banks, but I have it with question marks. And the reason I have it with question marks, this is a really common mistake that a lot of family members make. They go to the bank right away, and then they find out that there was no transfer on death. They find out that there was no beneficiary on the bank account. And they find out that the bank is going to freeze the account because the person passed away. And now that makes it really hard to pay those bills with auto pay, especially if there's money coming in. Now that account is frozen. It makes things very difficult. So I recommend that you not contact the bank during this pre-probate phase. So I'm putting a red line through that one. So Reen, you're saying, what do we do? I'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's jump down to securing the home. During pre-probate, you don't want to try to sell the home. You don't want to start talking to investors. You really just want to secure the home at this point. So first thing I recommend is change the locks. This is important for a million reasons. I'll start with some of the obvious reasons on cases that I've worked on. You would be absolutely amazed how many people have keys to your parents' home or whatever home is in the estate. So many people have keys. I worked on one case where the neighbors had keys, friends had keys, former colleagues from work had keys, even though they hadn't worked, this person hadn't worked for years. They still had colleagues out there with keys. The lady that did the Meals on Wheels had keys. The person who did the home healthcare had keys. The person who was coming in to help out with cleaning had keys. Also, the attorney had keys. Almost everybody had keys except for me. I did another probate case where there was a neighbor that had keys, and the personal representative and I didn't know it. And we had the house listed. And later, when we closed on the house, the other agent and I were talking about the neighbors, and she said, "Oh, was that the neighbor we met when we came and toured the house?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure. You know, was he out back in the alley?" She said, "No, he was in the living room." And I found out that this neighbor had keys, and every time a car would pull up to the house in the front, he would go into the back, let them in, and give people a tour of the house. I mean, he was even screening his potential neighbors, and I think maybe even scaring some of them away. So it's a really big problem. You also have problems with people who might go into the house and remove stuff or start donating stuff, or they think they were supposed to get something, or if you're organizing, they might start moving things around. And so it just makes it more stressful. Also, you want to prevent squatters from moving in. So change the locks. And squatters, I should mention, squatters could be someone from your family. It doesn't have to be a stranger who just moves into the house. All of those scenarios happen. So change the locks. Next, number 7, insure the home. And you're saying, Reen, I know the home is already insured. Wrong. The home is most likely not insured. Again, once a person passes away, and if the house is vacant, then a lot of times the homeowner's policy is no longer valid. And so even if you're making those mortgage payments and the escrow payment is going through to the insurance company, you want to check with the agent to make sure that that house really is insured, because I will tell you in most cases it is not, or at least in many cases that I've come across, it is not. And families don't find this out until it's too late. So call someone, call the agent, ask for a vacant policy, or ask if you need a vacant policy. If you do, it's going to be a lot more expensive than your traditional homeowner's policy. It is well worth it. Your attorney will probably recommend it if you have this conversation, and I recommend it as well. The house is typically the biggest asset in the estate, and it's sitting vacant. And as I already mentioned, maybe people have keys to it. People might come in and steal the pipes or the furnace or the mechanicals. You want to secure the home and insure the home. Number 8, arrange with someone for maintenance. You can have someone in the neighborhood come and shovel the sidewalks. In Minnesota, we have to do that all the time. Maybe have someone come over and mow the lawn, or hire a service to do it. Those expenses would be deductible from the estate expenses, but it helps you. It helps make sure that the house is maintained and that it looks lived in, and again helps prevent squatters from coming. So those are some tips for pre-probate. Let me know if you have any other tips or concerns about what to do during this pre-probate phase. One last tip I'm going to give you in this phase, and I don't have it on the slide deck, even though I said don't sell the house during this phase. And again, you can't sell the house during this phase anyway. Even if you have a will and you're named as executor, you will get to closing and find out that you can't sell the house and you have to go back and start over. It's a nightmare. And if you're working with with a real estate agent who doesn't understand this. They might be really eager to sign the listing agreement, get the house on the market. You find a buyer, you get to closing, find out that you can't close. This will cause you a lot of problems if you try to sell the house during this phase. What you can do during this phase is let family members know that you're planning on selling the house if you are, and also let them know that if there's anyone in the family who would like to live in the house or buy the house, now is the time for them to talk to a lender and get pre-approved so that when you are ready, they can buy the house and you don't waste any unnecessary time. So don't try to sell the house during the pre-probate phase. Only focus on securing the house and then let family know that if they're interested in buying it, now's the time for them to get pre-approved or pre-qualified.